MyLibraryTV.com. I just let my name link. I wasn't there to spam it. You know, was I there to get people? Absolutely, right? But first, I want to be part of the community. Authors and any business person needs to recognize what this is a cocktail party. See, media and building businesses have always been a presentation. You buy it, and you stack it high, and you pound people. Now it's a cocktail party. So if you go to a cocktail party tonight, if somebody rolls up on you with a pamphlet and starts selling you immediately, you're not going to like them. You know, you've got to create relationship first, and that is not normal. That is not what the game we've played in when we've tried to be selling for the last 50 years. We've always, people, when I hear people comparing this movement to like cable TV, that was just the expansion of a platform. This is this is a printing press moment, not we've gone from 13 channels to 36. So what I would tell them is they need to be relevant and engaging, and number two, I would tell them they have to give a shit. That if they get emails, they need to respond. That if they need to build real fans. You have to have people that care about you, and the best way to do that is to care about them first. And so find the places where the fish are in your niche. The reason I love Twitter and the reason I did well on Twitter was when everybody, you think some people, good enough hands went up. You think people think Twitter is silly now? You should have seen me trying to sell people on Twitter in February of '07. That was hard. I mean, at least now it's kind of at least pop culturized and people at least can respect maybe it could do something, right? Then people just thought I was totally out of my mind because they were like, well, who cares if you eat pizza? Or who cares if I'm brushing my teeth? You're right. They don't, unless you're a celebrity, and that's what they do with those kind of people. What's important, and why I won, was because I listened. I went to a site at the time called surmise.com, which is bought by Twitter, and now is the backbone to what search.twitter.com is. I would tell you one tactic every author needs to do, and every brand in the world needs to do, is to search their name, their brand, and everything relevant in their universe on Twitter 20 times a day. That's what I think. Because why I got Twitter followers was because when I searched Chardonnay, or I searched Pinot Gris, or I searched Bordeaux, or Camus, or Opus, or what wine should I drink, people were talking. Maybe I don't necessarily want to say that I'm eating pizza, but guess what? A lot of people do. And a lot of people would say, thinking about drinking Barolo tonight, which producer should I have? And I would say, at SallyPants49, Aldo Quintero, of course, he's the best. And that's what I did. I worked 20 hours a day, every day, to get there. And not everybody's gonna put in that kind of obnoxious hustle, but they need to work. And most authors I know, with all respect to authors, a lot of them are creative and don't want to do that part. I mean, the fact that they didn't want to do book signings traditionally, and gave you guys a hard time about that, that was a cakewalk compared to what I think they need to do now. They need to actually work every minute they can.
Hi. So yeah, I was Twittering you yesterday, actually, and you had a lot of good comments. People heard you speak yesterday and were Twittering about that, so kudos to you. My question to you is, how do you feel about blogs in general, and where does that come up in a priority for a marketing campaign for a book?
Yeah. So I think blogs are your home. I think they're the most important. When I hear people say they Twitter instead of blogging because they're a microblogger, I laugh. Twitter's a vacation home. You need a house to live in. And for every brand in the world, in my opinion, that is your blog. A blog and a website is the same thing nowadays. Why in the world pay $15,000? Go use WordPress or Tumblr or something and build a home. I think it is the essential thing. Crush It did very well. CrushItBook.com was a very big part of my success because I knew how to design it and I knew how to convert. And every time something new happened, like yesterday, when my book went on Audible and went audio, I had a huge day. I mean, Audible changed their Twitter background and put Crush It on it because it was so successful yesterday. Now, I had a theory for that. I wanted it to come out later, and I wanted to read it, and I wanted to go off script and be relevant because the world I was talking about changed so much. I talked about Google Wave in my audiobook. I talked about Zappos being a threat, but they got bought. I mean, so I was able to riff off of it. But I guess to answer your question, it's the single most important thing. It is the because when you go to the short story blogs, when you go to the vampire sites, when you go to the cooking sites, wherever you're going to become part of the community, you need somewhere to bring them. It's like a high school guy when he didn't have his own apartment. In the back of the car is not good enough. That's Twitter. You need to have a home. You need to have a home. You like that one?
Hi. Good. So if you're an author, an entrepreneur, on Facebook, Twitter, blogs, how would you advise separating your kind of personal online self from your business self, and if there's a divider there?
So I'm one of the people that really loves blending the two, because I really do think your personal DNA helps you so much. I know lots of people who watch my stuff because they're Jet fans, or they like when I make wrestling references, or, or 80s, New Kids on the Block things. I mean, those little nuances are so important, and I love when people blend them. However, I'm very aware to why so many people don't want them. Facebook's built perfectly for that, because the place you need to hone your brand on Facebook is through a Facebook fan page, right? And so, by virtue, that's great, because you can have your own profile, and then you can have that. Twitter, you're more than welcome to create 2 separate Twitter accounts. I don't think you should, and I think you're a little more selective maybe there. I mean, to each, listen, my biggest thing is DNA. My biggest thing in the world, hands down when it comes to business, is do what you're good at. And that's why getting an author who writes a great book, you're gonna wanna take it because it's a great book, and they're not gonna do the right things because they're not a salesperson. They're not willing to, they don't like people. Lots of authors don't like people. I love them. You've got different kinds of personalities, but the separation ability is very easy with technology if you wanted to go there. I think that if you have a good personality and you like people, you should keep it in one place. But if you're private, I mean, listen, not everybody wants to recognize how transparent our world is becoming. I saw an amazing app yesterday. Augmented reality is coming really hard on iPhone apps. So at Wine Library later this year, when you stand in front of the store, if you're taking a picture, if you use the Wine Library app, you'll see the store, but I will actually be in it. Like Yoda, and I'll be standing there and I'll be telling you the wine deals that are just for you if you have the wine app, and you can then you get a UPC and you scan it at the register. It's gonna be sick, right? But somebody used that same technology, showed me something the other day that's gonna really make all the players in the room really sad. This is unbelievable. They take the augmented reality, they go against Facebook's API, it recognizes who you are and shows the person your relationship status. So no more rolling up and saying, hey, and saying, well, yeah, who's Jen Thompson? So, I mean, we're living in a very, very, very transparent world. And a lot of people, and definitely a lot of brands, are struggling with it. And consumers, at some level, do control a lot more of the message than they used to. I don't like when people say consumers control the message, because I think it's important for brands to storytell. We're all in the storytelling business, and you need to know what your story is, and that's where your success will come. They can iterate from there, but we're living in a very, again, the fascinating thing for me were the less hands that raised their hand that thought Facebook and Twitter are not smarter, I don't know how I worded it, for business. I just can't wrap my head around that when it's so blatantly obvious it is. And I mean, I did something last winter. I put out a free shipping code. I bought a full page ad in Star Ledger in New Jersey. I bought a billboard right by Newark Airport, and I bought radio ads on New Jersey 101.5. All three had different free shipping codes for the month of December, and I sent out one tweet, and the tweet converted 4 times more than the other 3 combined. The other 3 combined cost me $22,000. Listen, I'm not gonna devalue the time I spent to actually have a following of that nature. However, we need to recognize the cost of entry to that was just time. It wasn't cash. And there is a lot of learnings within that. And more importantly, and this is where it gets really fascinating to me, because as people recognize how big this all really is this year and next year and the next year, it's very difficult to buy into it.